anything from the cult, they'll not only will you get on their mailing list forever, but they'll charge you about 400,000 times more than it's ever going to be worth. Thank you thank you for that. If you want to, for those of you who don't know, I do 3 shows a week on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern. These shows are exposés on the cult of Scientology. All other times, I'm out there protesting or auditing with my wife, Sherry, Suppressive Sherry. Some of you all have seen her on stream. Most recently, I made a surprise visit to Portland, Oregon, to the Portland Org, and got to meet some wonderfully talkative public Scientologists who, just gave me every detail I ever wanted to know about Scientology, which would be they gave me nothing because they've been told to give us nothing. They've been told not to confront us, not to shatter any suppression with us, and basically just look the other way. And they were kept out of their org for well over 10 minutes, and I felt really bad for them. Other than that, all these exposés, we look at the history of Scientology, we look at documents that I've received about Scientology, and we try to connect it all to current events, bring the past to the present, and see how history repeats itself. And we're going to be going back into the past today with Mark. We're also going to try and link up his experiences from being one of the original Scientology protesters, expose leaders, critics, and one of the enemy number one of Scientology. We're going to look at his history, mainly as it focuses around the Lisa McPherson tragedy. And we've been going over the tragedy for several weeks now. We've done the knowledge report that was written by the cult shortly after her death. We've gone over some backgrounds on Dr. David Minkoff, Benita Slaughter, which was both of whom were high-level Scientologists. Benita was her friend and her boss. We've gone over some court documents, the case against Scientology that was brought by the state of Florida that was ultimately dismissed due to some what I believe to be chicanery on the part of Scientology and the coroner. And then we introduced on my last live while I was in Portland, I introduced you to the Lisa McPherson Trust, which was established a few years after her death by Bob Minton and several ex-Scientology executives, as well as our guest tonight. And we're going to specifically talk. We're going to learn a little bit about Mark if you don't know who Mark is. And then we're going to we're going to talk to him mainly about his experiences on the Lisa McPherson Trust. He was often the man behind the camera. And then we're going to kind of query him about his recommendations for the future. Now, before we get going, I'm going to throw up some copyright disclaimers. You guys know I always do this. I'm not a copyright attorney, but I have stated a Holiday Inn Express. Holiday Inn Express. I do believe that anything that you see tonight is covered under the fair use copyright claim. So if we look at any Scientology propaganda, cult, I think that I'm adding commentary and criticism to it. Feel free to go after me. I would love to get you into discovery. I also, because of the sensitive nature of tonight's topic, I want to throw up a little bit of a do's and don'ts. Let's go over these just really quickly. I don't want to keep Mark waiting too much longer. So please participate in the chat. Please, please, please. We love your participation. Put comment. If you've got a comment, you want to say something to Mark, say something to me. You know the drill. Put question if you want to ask a question. Share any information that you might have learned about Scientology. Feel free. Congratulate other chatters. We want to show the good stuff that's going on. Congratulate the channel guests. If you want to say something awesome about Mark and what he's done and what he continues to do, please say something. And then share your own personal good news. We're all about the good stuff going on here. Now, here's the don't, guys. We don't use the Scientology W slang word in my chat. If you issue anything if you state that word in the chat, or if your handle is in that chat, my mods are probably going to ban you. This is a slur outside of the United States. It's an awful slur. If you want to talk about somebody that's outside of Scientology, call them a never-in, call them a normie. Don't use the W slur. Don't use any racist, misogynistic, or anti-LGBTQ language. Guys, that just goes, be nice, okay? There is no reason to use that kind of information or that kind of language. No body or mental shaming of others. We don't do that here. Everybody has their own story. Everybody has grown up, has come into this world a certain way. Everybody's valuable. We don't do that. Scientologists will do that. David Miscavige, the little space Navy captain, will do that. We don't do that. In the chat, please don't attack other chatters. If you've got something to say, you can email me. We'll deal with it outside of that. Also, don't attack the channel guest. Guys, I want channel guests like Mark to come on the show more often, and I want them to feel safe to tell their story, to offer their information. And don't use any inappropriate or sexually charged language. There's just no reason for that, guys. We're a family-friendly show. We do talk about some topics that might not be appropriate for children. So if you've got children and you're concerned about their well-being and health, or if you've got any kind of mental or health issues that you don't want to be triggered by, or if you're a cult survivor and you're not ready to hear stuff about Scientology, please, this is not for you. Come back on the replay if you want to skip around. And as always, if you want to contact me, if you ever have an issue, please feel free to email me at dave@declareddave.com. It is an encrypted email server. It is not hosted in the United States, and you're always free. I always keep my sources anonymous. All right, with that, I'm going to just quickly thank you, everybody that's here. I'm going to bring him in, guys. Welcome to the show, Mark Bunker. Welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I am so happy to have you here. I'm going to fanboy for a little bit. I have been watching you since, I think it was like 2005 or 2006. It had to have been before Google bought YouTube. Where you were posting stuff. I mean, you were posting stuff for a long time.
Well, I came a little late to the YouTube game. It was up for 2 or 3 years, I think, before I actually opened up a channel. But I had been posting stuff on my own personal website, and prior to that, sending videos overseas to Europe for people to post on their websites.
Was that Xenu TV or something like that?
Xenu TV, right.
Awesome. I keep hearing that. Did you get permission did you get the copyright permissions from Lord Xenu for that?
No, but he has given me his blessing in so many ways.
Oh, yes. We love Lord Xenu on this channel. I think that one day when the loyal officers let him go from his mountain retreat, his spa and vacation, we'll all have a lot to thank him for. Awesome. So what I really want to do now, I've already talked to you a little bit, but my channel has really been focusing a little bit on the Lisa McPherson story. And I came at it from a slightly different angle. Started looking at some Scientology documents, like the knowledge report that the cult wrote up on the incident that happened, and then started looking at the villains in the story, if you will, the Dr. Minkoffs, the Benita Slaughters. There's some others in there from the Sea Org that aren't quite as readily easy to get information on. And then we looked at the case against the church, or against the Flag Land Base in Florida. And we went over some court documents, and then we obviously saw that the case was dropped. And because of what we think to be nefarious actions on the part of Scientology, I don't have any conclusive evidence to that, of course. And then I kind of wanted to move into the heroes of the story, which brought us to the Lisa McPherson Trust, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you were a big part of.
Well, yeah, I was there on the ground floor, as it were. There were, I think, 4 of us when it opened in the first week of January of 2000.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
How did you get in? I mean, tell us a little bit about, I know I'm learning this YouTube thing. I know that not everybody that joins a live or a chat knows the background story of everybody. It's like, I hear Aaron Smith-Levin talking about it all the time, where every live is an opportunity to meet a new person. Can you tell us how you even got on the scene with the whole Scientology genre?
Absolutely. And speaking of new audiences, I am streaming this live to my channels.
Awesome.
As well.
Awesome.
So we're going out on YouTube and on Twitter there. So I have never been in Scientology. I am almost endlessly fascinated by it. I used to be able to say I am endlessly fascinated, but you know, I need to take a little break now and then. But back in '98, I had moved into a home up in the Hollywood Hills. And there was a woman who lived there right before me. who was a Scientologist. And she apparently left without giving them a forwarding address because I kept getting her junk mail. So
Probably
I would
smart
be
on her
reading.
part.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens more often than not. People try to escape, but Scientology usually has a way of tracking them down. So I would be getting her junk mail or celebrity magazines, things like that, reading the articles and seeing the ads for e-meters. And this was an organization that um, uh, that I was aware of going back to 1980 when 60 Minutes came to Clearwater to do a story about the Clearwater takeover. Mike Wallace came here to do this great piece.
Oh, is that
So I
the
was
is that the videos where he interviewed Reverend Jench?
yes, I believe it. I'm not sure if it's 80 or 85 when he came
Okay.
back to do a follow-up, but there
Sorry.
were two of them he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, this first one was all about. It was shortly after the FBI raids and Scientology's, top execs went to prison for all these undercover activities against the U.S. government and the Clearwater government. So that was a big story and a fascinating story, but there really weren't that many books about Scientology, and there certainly was no internet. So, I didn't do a lot of research after that, but that stuck in the back of my head. And Scientology is this unique blend of things that fascinate me: Hollywood, science fiction, and cults. So here was the perfect marriage. And so once I started keying in on it, that's when I got really involved in finding out more. And that back in 98, after I'd moved into this house and started reading about the e-meter, I then would go down to their buildings in Hollywood.
Okay.
The Big Blue and the testing, well,
Right.
not the testing center, but the L. Ron Hubbard Life exhibition, which is, better than Disneyland. Don't take the kids to Disneyland. You got this right there in Hollywood Boulevard.
Admission is free unless you're one of us.
Yeah. So I would wander into their buildings and say, what goes on in here? And then they would take me around and sit me down and show me the orientation film and try to get me involved in it. And I, would manage to find my way out of the building without signing up for any courses. And I had a friend, a coworker that used to hang out virtually every day. And we drove past Big Blue at one point, and she said, "What do you know about them?" I said, "Well, it's created by a science fiction writer, and it's pretty much a money-making thing. That's about all." And she didn't say another word about it. And as I got deeper and deeper into researching Scientology, I'd be talking to other coworkers, and they'd go, "Well, Susan's a Scientologist." And I went, "What?"
Oh.
And so I called her up and said, "How's your e-meter reading?" And she went, "What? What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, I know you're a Scientologist. That's fine." And she got very excited. Would you come to the church? Would you? Sure, I'll come to the church. When? Tomorrow? Will you come tomorrow? Okay. So I met her at the Celebrity Center the next night at 6 p.m. And I thought we were just going to wander around. But she had arranged for me to take the personality test, play with the e-meter, get the pinch test, get to view the orientation film again, and then sit down with the head of the Celebrity Center. And they spent about 45 minutes while I was sitting in his office trying to get me to sign up for courses. And, I just said I wasn't interested. And after we left the building, I said to my friend, I don't think this is for me.
Oh, no.
And then
you killed her FSM chances.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that that we saw when we went in there was the org chart. And
Okay.
they have a big blow up of it on the wall, and
Mhm.
the whole bridge to total freedom. And I say, well, where are you on the bridge? And she pointed right down to the bottom level. And went, what?
Oh.
You've been in this for 20 years and you're down here? And but she didn't have any money, and she didn't want to join the Sea Org. So there you go.
So you completely, for those of you that don't know, a field staff member or FSM is basically any public Scientologist gets a percentage of the amount of money that they get somebody into the Scientology, whether it's buying books or buying courses or auditing. They'll get like, I think I've heard like 10 or 15%. So she thought you were a cash cow, possibly.
Well, well, she knew what was in my wallet, so she knew I wasn't quite that.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think she was hoping that, you know,
Now,
uh,
did you have did you have investigative journalism? Was that what you were doing? Or was this just like a freelance, or was this just pure curiosity?
yeah, curiosity.
Okay.
I didn't get into journalism until sometime after this.
Okay.
I studied radio, TV, film in college. I spent 3 years on a radio station in the Midwest before moving to LA. And in LA, I did a lot of work in front of and behind the cameras, acting in things, and writing and producing stuff. And
Didn't I,
and eventually, oh, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna
Sorry.
say, didn't I hear you say you used to do theater?
Yeah, yeah, I did a lot of theater.
Okay.
A lot of
Like performing,
well,
or
yeah,
okay.
but not I never made it to Broadway.
Okay.
Uh, But I did a lot of theater, a lot of dinner theater,
Okay.
especially. There was one theater where I lived in Glendale, California, where I did Fiddler on the Roof there, and
Okay.
finally got to play Tevye, which is one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite parts.
Yeah.
If I could have, I would have been playing Tevye every night of my life since then, back in 91, I think it was when I did that. But it was great fun. And the side note, the little girl who was my youngest daughter in that production is now a big Tony-winning actress, Lindsay
Really?
Mendez. Yeah, she
Okay.
won. She was when I first saw her. She was playing the Wicked Witch in Wicked,
Okay.
and right now she's on Broadway in Stephen Sondheim's "Merrily We Roll Along"
Oh, wow.
with what's his name from Harry Potter? Forgive me. What's his name?
Radcliffe?
Yes, Daniel Radcliffe.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
and she's a Tony-winning Broadway star. And I got to tell you, it was incredibly exciting for me to be sitting there in the Broadway theater when I went to see her in Wicked. First time I'd ever actually gone to a Broadway show.
So are we
And
ever
I
going?
said, "Oh, go
Okay.
ahead.
No,
I'm sorry."
you go ahead. I was going to say, are we ever going to hear the dulcet tones of "If I Were a Rich Man" from you?
You can go online and see a video of me doing that song from
Ooh,
that production,
challenge accepted.
and that is a much better way to hear it now than with my croaky voice. It's getting especially bad tonight. Sorry about that,
Oh, you sound great.
but yeah, I have always had a fairly decent singing voice, and always surprise people when I sing "Happy Birthday" with a group, or doing the national anthem.
Nice.
I'll have a lot of people like I used to go to the Hollywood Bowl and sit up in the the cheap seats rather, way up in the back. And you all at the beginning of every concert, you would stand up and sing, and I would be belting out this in my best bass voice, and people would turn around and applaud me when we were done.
Nice.
Um, so yeah, I'm an incredibly talented man.
So let's put this in perspective. You learn radio TV in college, then
Mhm.
you go to the West Coast. You get it. You've done you've done a lot of theater. You've done not quite made it to Broadway. I used to do theater. I never made it to Broadway either. So I can't fault you there. Then you move into this place. You see some mail that hasn't been forwarded, so they haven't like reverse address. Well, this was what I don't know, the 70s or something, 70s or 80s, and they haven't quite figured out maybe how to find this lady. You get interested. You
Mhm.
go into you go into the LA org, I guess, on the Big Blue org.
Yeah. And this
And
is 1998
oh,
that I,
sorry,
yeah.
98.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I think I moved to LA around 1980, but
Okay.
this chapter of my life began in 98.
So
And
then go ahead.
no, yeah, once I started seeing all the magazines, and I decided, well, then I'm just going to go and find out some more. And the local library in Hollywood had a couple of really great books on Scientology that they hadn't yet, Scientology had not yet stolen from the shelves, which they often do. My favorite is Barefaced Messiah by Russell Miller.
Excellent book. Oh gosh.
Yeah, incredibly readable. That's one that I go back to from time to time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was starting to get some knowledge of it, and I knew a bit more after Susan invited me over to the Celebrity Center.
And then you dashed her hopes. You dashed Scientologist hopes of making money off of you or possibly getting in the word. How do you go from there to working with Bob Minton? How do you get introduced to the Lisa McPherson Trust?
I'm going to tell you that in just a moment, but
Okay.
a memory was jogged here
Sure, absolutely.
that I thought would be an interesting aside. During this period when I'm looking into Scientology, I got a new agent,
Okay.
and I was going to an audition for a music video on Hollywood Boulevard. And I had not done anything on camera in a couple of years. So I'm there waiting to audition, and there are a couple other actors, and we're chatting. One said, "Well, I just shot this commercial." One said, "Hey, I was just on that sitcom." And when it came to me, I said, "Well, I'm writing a film about the Church of Scientology." Of course, if it ever got made, I'd end up dead in a ditch somewhere.
Ooh. No.
And from that offhand comment, Scientology tracked me down through my agent. My agent called me and said, friend of her friend wants to talk to you. Here's their number. And I didn't recognize the name of either of these supposed friends. So I ignored it. And then the next week, my agent called back very angrily saying, they're telling they think that I'm not giving you this information. A friend of a friend has a job for you. Call them. And I went, okay, a job. All right, I'll call. So I dialed the number, and it was the head of the Celebrity Center. And
Okay.
he said, I understand you're writing a movie about Scientology. And that freaked me out. That from
Oh.
this little comment, they could find me. And so I nervously went, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was just joking." "Well, why would you joke about a thing like that?" "I don't know." No, and I hung up. And they called back, and I just let the machine get it. And I have the tape of it somewhere. I've never played for anybody. Um, but I mean, that was kind of creepy.
So that
Um,
was that your introduction to their I guess that's their intimidation tactics light, like a
well, I
baby
mean,
intimidation.
it shows the reach of the
Right.
organization, and why people in Hollywood have been reluctant to speak out for the longest time, because you never know who's going to turn you in, rat you out, let Scientology know. And no one at that point wanted to take on Scientology because they had built up this reputation
Right.
as being this nasty organization that would sue you to death.
And I mean,
Um,
in 98, 99 ish, I mean, the web was there. The World Wide Web,
yeah.
the internet was around. The World Wide Web came out in 94, but it wasn't like it is today. I mean, it wasn't,
Mhm.
there was no Google. I mean, I think you had early search engines. And you had the old dial up where you had to like, take over your phone line just to get on the internet and everything. For those of you that have never heard that wonderful cacophony of connecting sounds, you are suffering for that. But so you had your initial taste of their reach.
Mhm.
Did that pique your interest even more? I mean, I know you hung
Oh,
up.
yeah.
But I know you were worried a little bit. You were kind of. I mean, I guess if I had somebody call me up tonight and say, I heard you do something. I heard you talk to Mark Bunker. I've never had that happen, but because I'm just a small, tiny little channel. But I can imagine that initial like anxiety would just be just killer. I mean, almost.
Yeah. At least in that example, this is going out to a lot of people who are watching us live right now. So it would be understandable if somebody, found this stream or any YouTube stream out there. It was a little creepier to know that from one offhand comment to a couple of different actors, they
Yeah.
would hunt me down. And that's why I don't know if you've ever seen the Steve Martin comedy Bowfinger.
I have not. I need
Oh,
to.
you got to see it. It's terrific. Eddie Murphy plays this Tom Cruise type of superstar. Steve Martin wants to break into the industry and make a movie that he wrote. Can't get to Eddie Murphy's, but he meets Eddie Murphy's, I don't know if it's twin brother or somebody who's a nerd who looks just like him, and they pretend that this is him. But the whole thing revolves around a Scientology-like organization where there were ears and eyes everywhere. So if you're at all interested in Scientology, it's not just a fun takedown of them, but it's really one of Steve Martin's better films.
I will definitely, my wife and I will definitely jump into that. Okay.
And then another one. Let me.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead.
Version.
You lead. Go ahead.
One other film that I recommend you hunt down because there are so many delightful things about it. It's called Schizopolis from director Steven Soderbergh.
Okay.
Really, really wonderful filmmaker. And this was one of his early films where he not only wrote it and directed it, but he also stars in it. Where I've never seen him on screen before. But it is a blatant ripoff of Scientology. And even if you just watch the trailer for the movie, the trailer is hysterical. And it's very cutting edge and very, artsy. But there's a lot of slapstick stuff in it that's just hysterical.
All right. So Bowfinger and Schizopolis.
Schizopolis, yep.
Schizopolis. Okay.
Anyway, I think we were talking about the Lisa McPherson Trust and how
I was just curious how you went from LA and then you like completely uprooted yourself to go to Clearwater, didn't you?
Yes. And that was about a year in the making.
Okay.
It was the first year that I was researching Scientology and posting about it on Alt Religion Scientology, the news group. I didn't want to use my name. I was too frightened to go picket when critics came to town there. I didn't yet have the nerves to let Scientology see my face.
Okay. I understand that.
So I had a pseudonym, and if I can't tell you the pseudonym because it's in that list of don'ts. But my first name was Ben, and it rhymed with Benoit balls.
Oh,
and
okay.
And so I posted as Ben for a year, and then at one point, right at the beginning of '99. Bob Minton and Stacy Brooks took over or became chairman of the board and board members of a group called FactNet, which was a clearinghouse on the internet for getting out Scientology information.
Okay.
And Scientology sued them. Bob stepped in and kind of settled that suit with Scientology and allowed them to continue to exist. So when they announced that they were taking over FactNet on ARS, I sent them an email and said, "Hey, I've been working with video on the web, and if there's anything I can do to help you with that, please let me know." And they called me instantly and said, "Yes, absolutely. Come and meet us in Connecticut for this cult conference." They flew me out there. Bob put a little camera in my hand, and I followed them around everywhere. And I just remastered all of those videos. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can see all of that. It should. I forget what I call it now, but at any rate, that was the very beginning of me being involved in this. Prior to that, when I wrote to Bob and say that I do video, video on the web was incredibly rare.
Yeah.
It was well before YouTube. There was no easy way to do it. There was one program called the Real Player. Real Video was crappy format, and tiny little postage stamp size blurry video was what you got from it. The only other alternative was QuickTime at that moment, which was not streamable at that time. You had to download it to watch it.
Right.
So I started putting up video about Scientology in real video format, and sent videos from U.S. broadcast shows over to a couple of people in Europe who had a website, and they would post them for me to keep my name out of it. And so when I told Bob that, I'm the guy who's been doing all these videos, he invited me out, and then at the end of the weekend, he agreed to purchase me a camera and an editing equipment, which I still have sitting right next to me here. All the videos that I've shot during the LMT years are on these DV cam tapes.
Wow.
And I've been going through, and look, this one is Tori Chrisman.
Nice.
And another critic named Barb went to San Diego to do an interesting little sit-down panel discussion with a couple of Scientologists. And there's some really interesting things in the end of it when I'm confronting the Scientologist about things that they were putting into the record as true. Like the reason why Mary Sue Hubbard went to prison is because there were Xerox paper was stolen from the FBI. Really? No. The problem was what was on the Xerox paper was all the information you stole, in the middle of the night, making copies of all these government files.
So, as though the pulp itself was the problem. No, it's the black ink on the pulp.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, since you've been going through a lot of this old footage, and I mean, I have to say that watching, because I've seen some of this footage, or at least edits that you've made that were in the the older format, or the blurrier format. But as you've been going through this footage, has memories of like, did you know all of the footage that you had, or have you come across things just like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot about this?
Well, I still have tons to go through. But yeah, there are things that I'll run across and go, wow, I hadn't seen that before. Or maybe it was something that I
lost my life. Sorry.
Something that I hadn't keyed into back then that perhaps now makes more sense to me. But by and large, it's just been fun kind of going back and making all of these old videos look better than they were when they were shot, and sharing them again with, folks who have never seen them before.
I mean, people are, I mean, not just me, but people like LA and Toronto here are just loving this new footage, this new re-release. It's almost like your director's cut releasing, in 4K. And I was going to show I clipped a couple of things from some of your 4K footage about when the LMT got, like its first day. But
Yeah.
I'd really love to hear from you what it was like. Well, let me play this. Let me play this. Let me play this first little clip, because I think it will lead into um, kind of this is just a really quick little, when Bob does the first picket. And guys, for those of us that are watching on the web and whatnot, or watching some of the protests out in LA or in Clearwater, you're not going to see this many Sea Org members out there today. But here, this is just a little clip of Bob Minton's first picket. Let me make sure this plays.
Trust. Six.
All right, here we go.
It's 6 p.m. on Sunday night, and Bob Minton is leading the charge for the first official picket from the headquarters of the Lisa McPherson Trust.
It's safe to talk. It's safe to look.
Every night, busloads of Sea Org members are dropped off here for dinner.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are part of the Lisa McPherson Trust, who is established here in Clearwater at 33 North Fort Harrison Avenue. When you have problems with Scientology, call us at 467-9335. Remember that number, it could save your life. 467-9335. Have a great dinner tonight.
I mean, get back to this screen. So you guys show up, and I know there's a whole backstory about the building and everything. Please, everybody, go check out Mark's channel to get all this footage, because he can show you a whole lot more than I'll ever be able to show you, because he was there obviously and he's got the footage. But so this first picket, and unlike what we see today, where out there in LA or out there in Clearwater and some of these orgs, these Sea Org members they've disappeared, they poofed away, and they're not allowed to be seen. You're like encountering the whole gambit of them. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, when you first go to Clearwater, it can seem creepy because you do have Scientology camera people everywhere following you around. But quickly, it just became my downtown. And seeing the Sea Org members who then would routinely troop through the streets of downtown Clearwater, I was never concerned about seeing them, other than the fact that I felt sorry for these folks, and I was concerned about their well-being. But these are all dedicated young people who want to save the planet. It did put off Clearwater residents, though, because they would see that, and at the right before I got here, they changed the uniforms. But for the first couple of decades, the Sea Org members were walking through the streets in their little faux naval uniforms.
Right.
And the only thing that Miscavige compromised with the city over was those uniforms. He agreed to take them out of the naval outfits and give them these pastel uniforms that they wear now. That's the only thing he's done to help the city.
How generous of him.
Yeah, but that was a period when people were really creeped out by all the Sea Org members rolling around. I say, if you come downtown, enjoy a meal. You're not going to be creeped out. It'll be your downtown, and Scientology is far more afraid of outsiders seeing something than you should be of seeing a Scientologist.
Well, it was interesting when we look at that video, we already see like some of the first cam backs where they're filming you. You're filming them, they're filming you. And since you were not you and Bob were not ex-Scientologists. I know that Jesse Prince and Stacy Brooks were. They're pretty high up there in the executive strata of Scientology. But you and Bob not being trained as Scientologists, you guys never went through the TRs, the training routines, the bull baiting and everything.
Thank God.
Oh yeah. I mean, I just finished reading Jesse's book, and after some of the stuff that he talks about in his book, that it basically robbed him of his entire personality. And he still has, at least when he wrote this book, he claims he still has issues remembering his past. But what I was curious about with you specifically is they're trained Sea Org members and Scientologists in general, but I'm sure even Sea Org members more so. They're trained to take this kind of abuse. They're trained to be given the worst comments, the worst criticisms, the worst of everything, and to be completely no affect, just take it. How did you, as someone who never, how did you handle that? How did you handle, because there are more videos obviously on your site and whatnot of the bull baiting that they did to you. How did you deal with that internally?
Well, I never hear the Scientologists talking to me when they're spewing out all these horrible things that they'll say. I hear L. Ron Hubbard, because these people who will come up to me and say, "What are your crimes, Mark? Come on, spit them out. What are your crimes?" And then accuse me of, all sorts of horrific things, wife beater, all this kind of stuff. I never blamed it on them, because they're doing exactly what L. Ron Hubbard taught them to do, trained them to do. Always attack, never defend. As you say, that bull baiting is part of their training routines. And it teaches them how to control people and also how to be controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And I always have had the ability to not let it bother me. I also completely understood that when they came in front of my cameras to say these horrific things, it was great footage. And whatever they were going to say was going to be more interesting and compelling than me fighting back.
We hear today with the protesters talking about how this is now content. They're giving us content for the web, for YouTube and for TikTok.
Sure.
And it's almost like, if you look at it that way, if you just disassociate yourself from the fact that they're just going through some kind of routine. Again, it's a training routine. They're drilled that they're just basically boosting your, I mean, I hate to put it down to clicks and views, but they're helping to boost your, I don't know, was it Aaron says that Scientology is the best supporter of SPTV and all the anti-Scientology creators out there, because they create their own enemy. They create their own content for us. So you were an original in that you saw that happening in your face.
Well, and at that point, there was no such thing as clickbait, because there was no YouTube. There were no real streaming sites out there. Right. I just knew that this was fascinating footage, and I was very lucky to get it. Over the years, I would see other people who would take a different attack, and they would be the ones on camera speaking horribly and screaming at Scientologists. And how do you get a message across that way? Who's that really helping? I think the people that are in Scientology are good people. They really believe they're saving the planet. And the reason I know that's correct is because I've met so many former Scientologists who are all terrific people.
Right.
And it's the indoctrination that's the problem, not the people.
Well, I mean, it's like, like I say on my channel, and I know some of my friends, Windy City Thetan Watch, who's in the live here, we talk about the fact that we're not out there to criticize the Scientologist. We're out there to criticize Scientology as a whether you want to say it at a corporate entity level, or as a philosophy of harm. But as long as you're a consenting adult and you're not harming others through your practice of it, it's no different than you practicing, another religion or another spiritual aspect. But it's when you start to apply that to hurt people, to harm them, to traffic people, to steal money from them or whatever, that's where we start to really get. And I know personally, just because I've read a lot of the cult material, that does come from the top. It does come from Hubbard himself, who was clearly, a con man, and it's been perpetuated and probably accelerated by David Miscavige. But it's still different when you're there in the midst of it. Like sitting here in my house, I can be, be all big chested and barrel chested about, being against the cult, but getting out there in front in front of an org or protesting it, there's always a little bit of fear that I think as humans we go through. And you were one of the first. I mean, you weren't one of the first protests against Scientology, because I know there were a lot of St. Hill protests back in the 60s and the 70s. But I think in the modern, I would say in the post-internet age, early internet, or where video cameras were prevalent, you were one of the first, and are still one of the few continuing, that had to deal with that, and that just speaks volumes to your resilience in this. Can you tell me, like, I want to keep it humorous too. What were some of your favorite? I know you weren't seeing you weren't really there to confront the Scientologists, the individuals, but you had a few encounters with a few characters over your years.
Sure.
And
yeah,
who would you say of those comes to mind as being some of the more interesting, or the more, in retrospect, the more enjoyable, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Well, my favorite has always been Mary Dumas, who I met in Clearwater when I moved there to work with the LMT. And she was the head of the, what's that called? The OT committee.
Okay, so she's OT.
She was a powerful OT, and she was put in charge of handling us. And Mary was always a delight when she came to say the most horrific, horrible things to me on camera. And I continued to try to, to spend time with her. I said, let's go to dinner. Yeah, come on. Let's go see a movie. She's an actress. Let's do a show together. For God's sake.
Was she an actress?
She was an actress. Yeah. I think
okay.
she was running a children's theater troupe for a while, I believe.
Okay.
But I thought, look, we got so much in common. The only thing keeping us apart is this nutty L. Ron Hubbard stuff that you firmly believe in, and you can continue to believe it. Just you just don't have to keep calling me an SP. I am, but okay. So she was wonderful, and there's plenty of footage of her.
Yeah.
She is out of Scientology now, and she doesn't want to talk. She felt she was abused by critics and by Scientology.
Yeah.
She told me in the one exchange we had years later that she had no idea that all these videos would be seen around the world. And she thought she's just being a jerk on the street, and that was it. But she became a kind of an internet star.
I mean, all of these ex-members were gaslit into believing all this stuff.
Sure.
And she wasn't even, she was OT committee, so she was a public. She wasn't even Sea Org, was she? Yeah.
No.
So kind of like Tori's story of being in the Sea Org for only a very short period of time, and then being a public volunteer for OSA, and then all of a sudden coming out of the cloud of the fog of brainwashing to realize that they've been gaslit and they've been led to believe these things that just can't be real. I was going to ask you, it's sometimes it's difficult to look back at some of this footage and you see some of these faces that today are out of Scientology, and you see in the Lisa McPherson story, people like Mike Render and Marty Rathbun, who were pivotal in how the LMT was treated, how Lisa McPherson was treated, how all the critics at that time, and you see them in their Scientologist guise, and then you remind yourself that these people were out. I know I ended a video or had in one of my lives where Mike Rinder was confronted in the Lisa McPherson case by a reporter for ABC or CBS or somebody. And it's hard for us today because we know these people from the web, we know these people from YouTube as being, highly critical of Scientology. And you've obviously known them on an even more personal level, especially people like Tori and whatnot. But I came across this video of Tori on your channel where you're talking about how Alzheimer's, or not Alzheimer's, sorry, was arthritis. Yeah. And it's like to see a video of her espousing the benefits of Dianetics. It just like it makes me cringe a little bit because I know who she is. We at least, we have never met her personally, but it does illustrate the brainwashing that these people were under.
Well, yeah, you do get in that mindset, and Tori hates the fact that video is
I'm
out there,
sure.
and that I re-released it in 4K. She thinks it's a unfair attack,
Yeah.
and I didn't see it that way at all. I just thought it was, an example of how anecdotally people will tell you that Scientology can cure a lot of problems.
Mhm.
And the word cure, I think she and her husband at that point were really concerned about. I had the sense that she was worried that the church would get in trouble because through her, they're making claims that they can cure medical problems, which they're forbidden to do by the government.
Right.
After the FDA raided their headquarters and took all the e-meters,
Yep.
every e-meter has to have a little sticker on it saying this is a religious artifact and is not for use in solving any medical ailments. But still, anecdotally,
Right.
there will be people who will say, well, I'm handling my cancer with auditing. Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Well, the beauty of what the LMT did, and at least and I had this video. I'm gonna show this real quick video that you have on your channel, and it's the LMT's first anniversary, January 6, 2001, and it's kind of a very special video that I want to share, and I want the audience to see this because it shows someone that we care about.
I'd like to propose a toast to Lisa McPherson, who we all wish could be here with us now. And because of the cult that's down the road called Scientology, she's not. I think we all have recognized that this place can actually be a safe haven for people who want to leave that organization. And I'm glad that there's so many people here who have left this organization, who understand that, that the hate and lies and bigotry is down the street from us, and that this is really a beacon of freedom for Scientologists throughout the world. This is their.
And for those of you that don't know, that is Bob Minton, the founder of the Lisa McPherson Trust.
Cramming org. This is where they really learn to be free. Sure. And I'd like to propose a toast in memory of Lisa McPherson and the other Scientologists who we will help avoid the same fate that Lisa suffered. Cheers.
Cheers. God bless you, Lisa. I tell you what, I'd like to propose a toast.
Now, for those that don't know, this is Jesse Prince, who was part of the Lisa McPherson Trust. Jesse, we went over briefly in my last live the beginning of his affidavit testifying against the church. He was very high up in the organization, the Scientology executive strata. He was, I think, number 3 for a long time and left in 1992. I'm going to sort of skip a little bit here because there is somebody in here and there she is right there.
For all the people that are trapped inside, like myself that I was, and now it's totally to LMT because you guys did come and rescue me when no one else would talk to me. And I mean, no one else would talk to me. It was a pretty scary night that night that you guys came, and I can't say thank you enough. And it just, I pray that we can get more and more people out of that place and free. It's a wonderful place to be. I feel terrific, and I thank all of you, everybody that's fighting here. You're a great group of people. It's an honor to be with you.
Amen.
Here.
Now, for what people may not know is that this was like less than a year from that video that I mentioned, right? That she had actually was defending the church.
Yes. Yeah.
So you can go. What I'm trying to illustrate is from what you do, what you've done to set the stage for what we do today, and you continue to do today, to what that you do have an impact on helping Scientologists go from 0 to 100 out of the cult mindset. You know, it can happen, you know, that someone like Tori that was very much, and we're not going to play the video if you want, I had it queued up, but I don't want to disparage her. You can go look at the video where she's defending Dianetics. That was less than a year. And then here she is, this bright smile in the LMT. This was some of the greatest. You know, the LMT had a sad ending. We haven't gotten there in my channel yet. We've just been introduced to the LMT. We haven't gotten to the unfortunate sad ending of how the LMT dissolved. But your work with the LMT, and I'm assuming this is you behind the camera, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This was sort of before you really became on the other side of the camera, I think, because you started to have, and we're going to look at a couple of those clips, but you can see the impact that you were already having, that Bob was having, that everybody was having on Scientologists in helping them escape the mindset that was this cult. And we see today where Tori is back again. We've, you know, just like you, that we've got these OGs. We call you the OGs, the original gangster protesters in Scientology are back. Let me ask you a question though. Now that you know the LMT was founded in 2000, 99, 2000, somewhere around there, and I think it dissolved a few years after its inception. I'm not sure the exact date.
It existed from like January 3rd of 2000 to sometime in November 2001.
Okay.
That was it.
So many decades have gone, but looking back, hindsight being 2020 and all that, is there anything that you personally, because we obviously can't ask Bob because Bob passed away in 2006. Is there anything that you would have done differently, or would you would have hoped for a different outcome? I mean, what would you were there when all this was going down.
Sure.
So we can only look back and say, you know, I was alive, but I had no clue what was going on in Clearwater, Florida, or anywhere about Scientology. Can you kind of tell us what you were feeling, and then looking back now, how you feel about what could have done bit differently or better? Or, I mean, if it's, and I don't want to pressure you into anything, just kind of your own anecdote.
Sure. Yeah, things could have been done a lot differently. We spent a lot of time responding to Scientology harassment. We spent a lot of time in court. We ran through a lot of Bob's money with legal fees. He was provoked into doing into an incident where he took his picket sign and kind of pushed the security guard away with it, and the security guard kind of spun around to the ground dramatically, and
which they're prone to do, right?
Yeah. And there's video of it where the Scientologists come flooding out of the Fort Harrison Hotel, maybe 6 or 10 of them, and they're standing over the body of the security guard there on the ground, not saying a word, of course, because that would create engrams.
Right.
So, you know, Bob had to stand trial for that.
Mm-hmm.
They set up Jesse on a drug charge. Jesse and his girlfriend met this fella in one of the local bars. Guy became a good friend of theirs, went back to Jesse's home. The guy gave him some pot, and they sat there and smoked it. And The guy was a PI that Scientology brought in from Orlando to, they had to go there to find a black PI for this job. And then, he gave them the pot. And then Scientology had called the police and said, this guy's a druggie. And there was an early morning raid on Jesse's home at like 5:30 in the morning. They came in with guns drawn and arrested him. And oddly enough, the Scientologist camera people were right there across the street shooting video of him being arrested at 5:30 in the morning. So Jesse had to stand trial, and Bob had to pay for attorneys for that. Jesse was found not guilty.
Right.
And I tell you, I said at the time, if I had been on a jury, I probably would have voted guilty, because he did have a pot plant in his bathtub. And but the information we managed to get in about Scientology's involvement, how Scientology hired this PI who we tracked down and subpoenaed, so he had to come and testify about the $160,000 I think he was paid to be working on this. And the jury was so annoyed at Scientology, so angry.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, they found Jesse not guilty very easily. Same situation with me. One of the first things that happened when I was there in the first few weeks of January of 2000, 1 week I get involved in a hammer attack where some German filmmakers came to town wanting to interview this Scientologist artist, Gottfried Hellwein, who had a home there. So they were going to knock on his door, and they asked me to come along with my camera and just get some footage of them knocking on the door, which I did, and no one answered the door. We started going back to the cars, and suddenly this guy came out with a hammer and threatens us and whacks my camera a couple of times with a hammer.
Oh my
and
goodness.
That's all on videotape. The police refused to even look at video of the incident and said they wanted our IDs. If you watch my video, Clearwater and the Scientology police, you can see that incident and all the details of it. So I won't go into it anymore. But, 1 week after that, I was up in Chicago interviewing two dentists who had been defrauded out of $20,000 that they paid for courses in advance that they weren't able to use. And they've been trying for 2 years to get that money back. Well, I went to videotape an interview with them, and we're standing outside the Chicago org. I've got my big camera on my shoulder, and I asked the couple of dentists, they're a married pair. I asked, so what's going to happen here tonight? Is they were going to go in and sit down with Scientology and hopefully come to an arrangement where they'd get their money back. Instead, before they could answer my question, these two guys in black leather jackets came rushing out the Scientology front door, ran right between the dentist, grabbed me by either arm and arrested me and charged me with trespassing on a public sidewalk. And I had to stand trial. I was taken, put in a squad car, booked, fingerprinted, got a really lovely mugshot out of it, one of the best pictures of me I have, and thrown in the slammer for a few hours. Luckily, it was after about 3 hours, I was bored to tears. But when the cell door slammed shut on me, I just sat there in the cell laughing. I go, how did this happen? Me, cherubic little choir boy, me. I'm in jail, for God's sakes. Well, it cost Bob $60,000 to defend me in that case. So
oh my goodness.
We blew through a lot of Bob's money just by Scientology taking us to court constantly. And a lot of my time was spent preparing video footage for evidence. And I'm proud of everything that I accomplished. I don't know that there's things that I would be doing differently.
Right.
I was I was on my side of the building working on video and putting together a website for it. So I was not involved with the other aspect where Stacy and Jesse were on the phone with either Scientologists who wanted to get out, like Tori, or family members of somebody in the Sea Org who want information. And Stacy would go, "Wow, these people just want to talk. I can't get off the phone with these people."
It's because
Not that she was complaining.
they're not allowed to
But-
talk in Scientology.
Well, also
Otherwise, they get in
found out-
trouble.
Yeah, but I also found out that this was also a Scientology op because they had volunteers like Tori. It wasn't Tori, but they had people volunteering to just tie up the phone lines and tell stories. I'm trying to remember who shared that with me. It's some video I haven't put online yet that I shot for a documentary that hopefully will one day get finished.
We hope.
Yeah. So, there's tons of fascinating stories. There are things that, I always said if Steven Spielberg was interested, he could have done my job much better than I could have. And there maybe would have been people that could run the LMT better than Stacy and Jesse and the people we had there. Maybe, but they weren't interested.
Right.
We were the folks who said, let's try this. Let's try to make a difference. And I think we did.
Well, I was going to say, Scientology operates from a consistent playbook. So they have to operate from L. Ron Hubbard's words. Consistent, I would say 90% consistent, because David Miscavige has changed things. But there's some comments in the chat about we still see this behavior today. I mean, we still see the police not wanting to look at footage when we have some of the protesters and auditors getting arrested out in LA or elsewhere. We see these tactics of using PIs still, although I don't know I think there's been PIs employed out in LA and other places. Certainly there in Clearwater earlier late last year. But the LMT, you and the LMT kind of like set the stage for how we today, and I'm using the metaphorical we because I can't always get out to an org to protest or not, but we can learn from a lot of what you all unfortunately had to experience in the LMT, because you've dealt with the failure of law enforcement. You've dealt with the private investigators being hired by Scientology to do nefarious acts. You've dealt with the feigned. You may not. Well, I think you had the foot incident with the gentleman in Big Blue there in like
Dennis Clark when he stepped on my
and it's like today with unfortunately with Nance Drew in Chicago having the boob attack or getting all that kind of stuff, and it's like you see the feigned hurt of the Scientologists as they are incidentally touched by somebody that's protesting, and then suddenly they're in therapy for the rest of their lives or something. It's both a cautionary tale for us as far as like if you're going to go out there and protest, you're going to go out there and audit, or even if you're going to get on YouTube like I am here with you, that Scientology is still watching. Hello, OSA, if you're out there.
But the best thing to do is document it with video.
Camera. I was going to say, you had to carry around a camera. You had to carry around a large. I don't know if you had a little camcorder. Well, you showed a picture of the.
No,
tape.
I had a great big professional camera at that point.
But now today we've got these little guys in our pockets.
Oh yeah,
that are like amazing,
much better quality than my big old camera.
But I was going to say, if the LMT had these back in the day and had YouTube back in the day, and I don't think Scientology would have gotten away with quite what it got away with back then. You went on after the LMT dissolved. You obviously went on to fight Scientology. You know, you became, I don't know if you were enemy number 1, but you were certainly enemy, 1A. And I was going to play another video that I thought was pretty interesting. Let me see if I have it queued up. I wanted our fellow LA protesters specifically to kind of see this footage because they did it back then. They're doing it today. It's still the same thing. It's still the same tactics. Let me bring this up real quick. Again, this is from your footage. It's just a little clip of how they like to close off streets.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
4th of July, and Scientology is having a street fair. Everybody's invited.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi. Enjoy the festivities.
Hey.
It seems I was expected because as soon as I arrived, this fellow said into his walkie-talkie, "He's here, south side." This fella came to stop me.
Because the street's closed off right now,
The
sir.
street is closed off, but it's still a public street.
Street's closed off, sir. You're not wanted here. Why don't we have
But,
the police talk to you right now?
But wait a minute. There's a banner right there that says, "Oh, welcome."
Well, let's talk to this police officer over here.
All right. Hello.
We have a right for you not to be here, okay?
All right. Now,
It's your
I understand
event.
that I'm not allowed to come here.
That's right.
And why is that?
Because the street, we have a permit for the street, sir. I'm not going to talk to you while you have a camera on me, okay?
Well, why not?
Because I don't want to. So put
Just
the-
act dumb. Why not? Try to get an answer.
Yeah.
It's the
Oh, let me stop that real quick. Yeah, I mean it's the same playbook again that we're seeing today. Although their
Sure.
uniform back then looks a whole heck of a lot more police-like than it does today. I could see where somebody encountering one of those security folk would think that was an actual police officer when it wasn't. It was a
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the lengths that they will go to try to stop a simple little protest. Now, and it kept evolving. So, okay, they hired a cop to be at the end of the street to say you're not welcome, even though it's a public street. So then afterwards, they realized, okay, what we can do is get a filming permit. And with a filming permit, which was far more expensive than just a street permit to do a street fair, they could shut down everything on that street. And of course, money is no object to Scientology,
Right.
so they started getting film permits all the time. And then I remember one picket where they set up a little camera and were supposedly doing some interviews on the street, just as a cover story. See, we're filming. But they did other things that got increasingly desperate and bizarre.
like what?
Well, including the gold tone out at the Desert Compound, Golden Era Studios.
Okay.
They had huge speakers that put out this deafening low tone.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, to drown out anything. So we could be shouting at one another. We couldn't hear each other. And that would be painful. And they started using that at different places. In San Diego, they were doing it at a local org, which is pretty much in a neighborhood. This deafening sound. And I've got some video on my channel of it. There's one, if anyone wants to do a search, I think it's just called the gold tone. So that was effective in that
Right.
it silenced us. But then in Clearwater, there's some footage that I just captured recently that I haven't shown before. For the December 99 Lisa McPherson anniversary, it's the anniversary of her death every year. There used to be a vigil held, a candlelight vigil held across from the Fort Harrison Hotel. Well, this year, they decided this is the perfect time to tear up all the sidewalks all around the Fort Harrison and pretend they just needed new sidewalks. So you could not walk in front of the Fort Harrison Hotel in any way or shape or form. And then across the street on the other side, they had these huge scaffolding things up. So
This was just this year?
no, this was 99.
Oh, 99. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, it's just astonishing to see that, you know, so what? So what? It's going to cost us money to tear up sidewalks that are perfectly fine. It'll be a way to shut them down. Also that year on the downtown street, Cleveland Ave, they stationed kids, young kids, at activity tables. So they just have like a, you know, basic table out there, card table, and they had little crafts for the kids to do. Nobody was on the street except for critics.
Right.
And these poor kids who were left out there as shields, human shields, while, you know, the adults were nowhere to be seen. And, you know, I shot a little footage of that, but I didn't show the kids' faces. But, you know, they were forced to sit out there for hours and hours simply because Scientology wanted to be able to capture footage of us saying, look, they're protesting kids. Can you believe the way they're treating kids? Meanwhile, we were incredibly respectful of the kids and, you know, didn't bother them at all.
I was just going to say that just happened in San Francisco with Ashley. There's a protester, Ashley, up in San Francisco, where she captured a child standing in the foyer of the San Francisco org. I think it was her. And this child just looks bewildered to be just left by herself in front of the church, all in order for them to then file a restraining order against her for whatever. And it's like they continue to do the same tactics. And I think that's why talking to you is super important, because it kind of arms us, and it arms those that are really out there. And you know, I'm only out there when I can, but the ones that are out there day in and day out are dealing directly as protesting Scientology. This has all happened before. It's all going to happen again. But the more that we know from your experiences, and the more that we know from Tori and others, it's just like, guys, we can learn from this. And I was going to play one more video. Well, I've got two more videos I'd like to play. And I was going to show you, it's a video off both of these are off your site. The last one is very short. And then we'll probably start hitting some, because we've already been going an hour and 20, and I don't want to keep you too much later, but I definitely would love to talk to you again. But what I want to do is I want to show a video you posted about how they tried to get you evicted from your condo in Clearwater.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's important to show, because they will go to any links whatsoever. And I think this might have been one of the first. I don't know if you had this video back in the day or not online, but let's listen to this.
Well, this was after I moved back to Clearwater.
Oh, was this
around 2013, I think, is this video.
Okay.
Sparkling in Clearwater, Florida. I haven't turned on the camera and just talked to you in a long time, and I thought it was about time I did so again. And I'm going to try to do this more in the coming months. I lived here in Clearwater back in 2000 and 2001 when I worked with Bob Minton at the Lisa McPherson Trust. Spent 10 years away from here in San Diego, where I was working in TV news. And I decided that I would come back to Clearwater. Now, the first question everybody always asks me is, why? Why would you do that? Well, I like Clearwater. And the 2 years that I spent here in the past were the most interesting years of my life. I always felt an affinity to Clearwater, even before I ever visited the town, having read about how Scientology snuck into town back in the late 70s and targeted Mayor Gabe Casares. Well, when I lived here back in 2000, I got a chance to meet and become friends with Gabe Casares, and that meant a lot to me. So I'm back here. I'm going to work here to finish up my movie, and I thought...
Is that the movie you're telling us about?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Knowledge Report.
I can't wait. I want to see it. I want to see it.
You know, I'll set up base here and maybe someday down the road run for public office. I think that would be.
Was that foreshadowing? Was that foreshadowing?
It was.
You made a promise and you held true to that promise. That's the kind of man you are. I'm fanboying a little bit here, but for those of you that I'm sure everybody in this chat knows, but Mark just finished a 4-year stint on the Clearwater City Council, and we are hoping that we can get him back on that council or need him as mayor down there. I'm prepared to move down there with my wife to support him. But you know, let's hope that maybe in the interim here, as he upscales all this video, that maybe more political. I'm not going to ask.
Fun. Wise beard mayor. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you today because lots of exciting things have been going on since I moved back here. Some of those you probably already heard about. I moved here a couple of months ago. A couple of days after I moved in, I had a knock on the door. And it was my neighbor, Judy, lives right next door to me here. Judy was a very friendly, bubbly person and invited me into her place. And I graciously went in and sat down with her. And we talked for like 10 or 15 minutes, a lot of small talk, you know, what it's like living here in the complex and the neighborhood and the weather and, you know, kitties and dogs and stuff like that. I saw after about 10 or 15 minutes that she had a bookcase full of Scientology material. And I thought, well, okay, I better be upfront about this. And I told her, listen, Judy, I have to be honest with you. I am what Scientology would call an SP. I've been working on this documentary about Scientology. I've been interviewing a lot of former members and a lot of former executives and people who have been touched in one way or another by Scientology. And I just wanted you to know that. Judy's face, her expression changed abruptly when I said that. Prior to this, she had been so bubbly and was offering me.
we're not gonna play the whole thing because it's 26 minutes. But for those of you who don't know, that's Marty Rathbun in the picture in the background. So another story there. But I'm gonna go a little bit further, but then I don't want to do the whole 26 minutes here.
A chair or a table if I needed some furniture before the movers arrived here, and as soon as I said, you know, I'm an SP, her face went. And she very quickly said, well, if that's the case, I'm going to have to ask you to leave.
Now, I'm just give us the cliff notes, but did she end up leaving?
No.
She stayed.
Well, did she? Well, you know, she wanted me to leave her apartment, which I did.
Oh, okay. I thought she wanted you to leave leave the complex.
Yeah, she just wanted me out of her place, which is fine. But then she complained to Scientology that this SP was living next door. Scientology's attorneys contacted the HOA, the condo association, and tried to have me evicted. And the president of the condo association wrote back to them, "Oh, we did a background check. He's fine." And so I had my attorney, Dennis DeFlaming, who represented Bob and flew up to Chicago to represent me when I was arrested. He knows Scientology. So Dennis and I went down to the police station to talk about this injunction, because what they were trying to use this injunction from 2000 that said we have to stay 10 feet away from Scientologists, and they have to stay 20 feet away from us. You know, it's nonsense. So we went in, we made an appointment to go and sit down with the chief of police at that point. And we got there, and the police department attorney was there, and some other people who were in the room, and we were going to ask them for their support for us to go back to the judge in this case and say, Your Honor, there's no need for this injunction anymore. The Lisa McPherson Trust was dissolved. It's just Mark here, and he's not doing anything nefarious. And so we asked the chief of police, would the department come and speak on our behalf and say, yeah, let's let's just dissolve it. We don't need it. But when we got there and sat down, we discovered that Scientology got there 15 minutes before us, or their meeting ended 15 minutes before. And the chief of police just said, no, we think it's good. We're going to leave it in place. So, it's amazing how Scientology is everywhere.
Is this the same one they keep renewing every year against you?
Yeah, well, they haven't renewed it.
Oh, they haven't renewed it. Okay.
It's an injunction that was a permanent injunction against Bob and those who worked in concert with him.
Okay. So obviously you didn't get evicted. And this is not the end of probably all the fair gaming that they've done to you. And obviously you were, as a city of Clearwater councilman, you had many encounters, and you've talked about stories about how even the development organization, the downtown development organization, they didn't want you on that. But
well, yeah, that was almost entirely Scientologists on this little board.
I forget, was Ben Shaw part of that?
No.
Okay.
No, this was another infamous person, Paris Morphopoulos.
Oh, Morphopoulos, that's right.
Yeah, he was the chairman of the board, and then at least 3 or 4 other people on the board were Scientologists. There was 1, maybe 2 that weren't. And so when I was elected to the council, we divvy up what different boards and organizations we want to represent. And so I said, I'd like to serve on the Downtown Development Board.
Right.
And then all the Scientologists, all these powerful OTs like Morphopoulos and wealthy business owners there, they all lined up in a council meeting to talk about how horrific it would be if I were allowed to be part of the DDB. This is like Hitler being invited to
oh my gosh,
some Jewish thing. Yeah, or the KKK setting up in a, this was a thing on racial issues, whatever. So one after another, they came and spoke at the council saying, oh, he's going to be leading marches through the street. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be horrific. And of course it wasn't.
Right.
I got appointed to the board. A couple of times I said to them, hey, listen, the problem downtown is Scientologists own all of these buildings and they're leaving them sit empty. You're in the best position to find out what's going on.
Right.
Go to Miscavige, find out what he's doing with this. Talk to the owners, find out. And no, they refused to do that. Instead, they instituted rules saying you can't say the word Scientology at a meeting. Or they start banging the gavel.
Again, we see it. We see the police still operating from that playbook out in LA and Chicago. We see the city councils and the city leaders still playing from that, creating these rules, not talking about Scientology, it's an answer. Maybe I'm biased because I'm so much against the cult and everything that it stands for, but these politicians and these police officers and whatnot, are they still afraid of Scientology? Are they paid off? Are they? I mean, some of the generations that you've dealt with have moved on, have passed on. So what is still going on with this mentality that they could just pick up a YouTube, pick up a cell phone and watch our YouTube channels and clearly see, and yet they're unwilling to do so?
Well, there are people who watch. They see these videos. Certainly, when I got elected, meeting with our city manager, he told me that he was watching my stuff, and his favorite video was one where I gave the comparison between Scientology and Christianity. And I'm not a religious person myself, but
Sure.
this was in one of the DDB meetings where a Scientologist said, I'm a Scientologist, and I'm a Christian too, and we're all pretty much all Christians. And so I went back and talked next time at their meeting about how it really isn't compatible, and then made a lengthier video about that. And city manager said, "That's my favorite video. I love that video." Also had a fan at the second TV station I worked at in San Diego. The vice president of the news station had his office next to my editing bay, and I would be working on a story for that night's broadcast, and I would hear him playing my videos from YouTube.
Oh, wow.
And laughing uproariously at all these things. So, but the people in the city and in the police department and all that, I don't think it's corruption. I don't think it's necessarily fear. I think it's the fact that no one will help. So they're left on their own with no one farther up the line who will assist. Clearwater's in a horrific situation now.
It is.
The day after I left office was the day that they purchased the last 5 available buildings downtown, including the office tower where City Hall is now located. And thank God, one of the things that we were able to pass before I left the council was approving the construction of a new City Hall, which should start this year. But you don't want Scientology being your landlord.
I was going to say,
I would,
for all that the DDB members were so like, you're going to be raising hell in the streets and you're going to be, marching down. When your time on the city council, you all got the amphitheater built, you got the contract for the new City Hall passed, you did a bunch of stuff. You did a bunch of other
things that I was,
stuff.
Yeah, things that I was very proud of, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to work in the community, because it wasn't all Scientology. I made sure that the city was well informed about what was going on in Scientology, and I used my closing comments more often than not. The 3 minutes at the end of a meeting where you can talk about anything, I would talk about some horrific thing in the news with Scientology. But the problem again is, I went to the FBI as soon as I got on the council, and took along Mike Rinder and Aaron Smith-Levin when they could be in a room together.
Yeah.
And we talked to the FBI about the racketeering.
RICO.
Yeah, I mean, David Miscavige created a city in Clearwater, created a problem in Clearwater that only he could solve.
Well, he wants to create a company town, doesn't he? I mean, that's pretty much his whole goal.
Yeah, he just wants prying eyes away from, his domain. That's his campus there. Who are we W people to be pestering him? So, you go to the FBI, you explain all this stuff, and they say, well, we got to have evidence. You got to have somebody on the inside who comes out with some evidence that we can take to a judge to get a warrant to go in and raid the place. Or you need someone who's just left, who's got information that can be an informant. Without that, we can't do anything. And so you run into these obstacles all the time where the FBI can't do anything, the IRS can't do anything. Congress should be holding hearings on this, but Congress can't do anything. They can't achieve. There's been years now of them not being able to accomplish anything, so they're no help.
Right.
But you go to the state officials and the federal officials, and no one wants to do anything about it. It's like Ray Emmons said back in 2000 in my police video. They turned to the state officials, they turned to the feds, and they said to them, are they going to come after me? Are they going to, do something to me? It's a religion. So.
I have to say that's why, and I'm a little self-promoting here, but the whole purpose around my channel and a lot of other channels like mine, and then is to expose. It's an expose channel as well as a protest channel, but is to try to keep alive this history. If you've got the cult that perpetrated the largest infiltration of the United States government in its 248-year existence, you've got all of this documented, well, at least documented as best as I know how it could be documented, of all this corruption and abuse and financial crimes. And then you've got to just keep, it's what's wonderful about you re-releasing all this footage in 4K as well, is that you got to keep exposing. It's almost like death by a thousand cuts, because the politicians aren't out there, the government officials aren't out there. Eventually they're going to have to be out there. They're going to find themselves out of a job. Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, well, I was going to say, I mean, there has been a sea change. Although we can't get officials to do much of anything, the climate has certainly changed for Scientology.
Yeah.
When I started in '98, I remember going up to CNN as I was doing a story in the building there, and I was talking to the people at the news desk, and they said, we created 3 stories about Scientology, and the attorneys would not allow us to put them on the air. And that was a period when newspapers weren't often writing on anything. This was when Time magazine was sued by Scientology and spent 10 years in court. So all other journalism kind of shut down about Scientology for a long time. And that changed when Tom Cruise started jumping on the sofa. Once he got up on that couch, then people could start talking about
that's when I got
Tom
started.
Cruise.
That's when I got started. Yeah.
And then South Park hits, so people are hearing about Xenu for the first time in a big way. And then South Park wasn't sued, and everyone went, I guess it's safe for us to be writing stories about Scientology again. So then there was renewed interest. Meanwhile, the internet has been feeding more and more information out there. So the world knows all this stuff now. For the most part, it's amazing that Stephen Colbert can make a joke about Xenu, or John Oliver on his HBO show can say, "Where's Shelley?
Where's Shelley?
Where's Shelley, David Miscavige? Where's Shelley?" And the audience knows what he's talking about.
Sadly, Scientologists don't know who Shelley is.
Well,
unless
unless
they've been in there for a while.
Yeah. But at any rate, the internet has done its job, and it's no longer possible to Scientology to grow and prosper the way they claim they are. More and more people leave all the time. They have enough wealthy individuals in there keeping them afloat, and they've got $3 billion in the bank, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon. But it's a whole climate.
Unless they lose their tax exempt status, and then they're going to start paying a massive bill,
which they should.
Yeah, I want to show one more video, and this serves a dual purpose. It's a shout out to the org that I was just at. I just did a surprise, but it also is just a reminder of what has come before is happening again, and that is you at the Portland, Oregon Ideal Org opening. And I just thought this was so, it's like looking today and seeing the Austin org opening, the all the different orgs getting the Chicago org opening, and here you were when 11 years ago, or at least when this video was posted. It's just fascinating to see it what has happened before continues to happen. And this is just a really quick video.
So Scientology tried to stop me from shooting the Ideal Org opening here in Portland. Sorry, the camera's shaking. It's in my hand as I climbed up a couple really scary ladders to get on the roof of a bar to shoot after they intimidated a store owner from letting me work in the second floor of this building. I'll continue filming as long as I can.
When I came across that, I was just like, it's like looking through an hourglass. It's like looking through a time machine, you know, that you were doing back then, what we're doing today with all these protesting at these ideal or not. I love someone called them not so ideal orgs because they're not so ideal. And I was just there in Oregon this past weekend and did some protesting there, and he's dead. Is very dead, and it's very but
Sure,
look,
it's dead at all of them. You know, they open up a nice, pretty fancy building, but there's still no public in there.
There's like only one good thing in the world that they do, and that's the fact that they buy these rundown historic buildings and they renovate them. But they renovate them on the backs of Sea Org members, and they renovate them on the backs of the Scientologists, the public, and the Scientologists who fundraised the org, did all the money to buy the org, fundraised all the money to renovate the org, and then turn around and give the org to the landlord's office in California just to turn around and pay rent. And it's another crime. Let's go through a couple of comments and questions just real quick. And
Sure.
Guys, I'm starring and doing this all myself. This is my first doing this, so please bear with me as I go through this. I've tried to do a really good job. Wendy says, "Get your popcorn and let's go." Yes, this was good popcorn. I'm still gushing. I'm going to be like, just talking to a hero is so.
Well, I don't know about hero, but I am apparently a national treasure.
You are absolutely a national treasure, a hero, a original gangster, and just in this whole movement, I think where this, you know, everybody please, let's keep Mark's channel going. Let me show the channel again.
Oh my God, yes, Kelly, that's a great idea.
Yes. Please, keep it going. He has been around. His channel has been around before Google owned YouTube, y'all. So, just like Tori's been around before then too. And I know she's been in the chat. Please make sure you're going out and checking out all this 4K footage is beautiful. I mean, it's like, how could an old 4x3 camera, 480 whatever resolution, you're just getting it upscale.
That was standard def.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a program that I tried a couple cheap programs that were crappy. And then I saw this Topaz AI. I took a look at it online and I said, I got to have this. It's $300, but good Lord, it works. So I bought it, and that's what I've been using. And then I bought myself another nice desk out here with all of my editing equipment. I've got a new used VCR that plays videos from all around the world, so I can make new copies of all these videotapes that people have sent me from Europe and Australia and everywhere. So I've sunk a lot of money into this in the last month or so. If anyone wants to buy me a coffee, I appreciate it. Yeah,
absolutely, y'all. Buy this man many, many coffees. He needs to stay completely caffeinated throughout the night. Let's, I don't want to work you like a Sea Org member, but let's, do it for fun. Love that he did theater. I'm an AV geek as well as a theater geek. So just love that you did theater. Love that you're an AV. You had to probably edit back in the day where you didn't have you had to do linear editing probably. I don't know.
Oh yes. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Can't imagine.
When the two TV stations I was working at, it was deck to deck linear. And it was a unique skill, but you were editing with stone knives and bear skins, as Spock would say.
As Xenu Free here says, time to find the tape and a pencil just in case the film is misbehaving and you need to roll it up. Let's see here. Wendy City Dayton Watch says, I've mentioned this before, but I love the old videos so much, but appreciate you upgrading to 4K. Yeah, the old Mark and old Tory videos are gold. Guys, there's a video on here. I'm going to play it. I got to play it. There is a video. I'm going to probably going to, if she's still on, she's probably going to be, oh gosh, where is it? Anyway, there's this. Oh, here it is. I found it, guys. Here it is. This is fun. Tori, we love you, but I got to show it because this is just great. This is just great.
Oh, let me tell you,
Let's
Bob
hit the
Minton is a
jacket.
neatnik. He does
And
not like this.
see. You got it!
Get that out of here. Get that out of here. Going down your head. It's going down your head. It's going in the hair. Don't do that to me. How can you dare do this? No, Tori, get out of here. No, I don't want this house all messed up, Tori.
You're getting glue in your face. Sit down.
No.
Sit down.
No.
Sit down.
Look, it's all over the place.
You're gonna get more of it.
Stacy, take this in the kitchen.
Let go. Oh my God. You are gonna get it.
You're gonna get it, baby. You get here and do this to me. Forget it. Forget it.
Oh my God. Look at you. I couldn't resist. It was an attempt. Look at
That
him.
was evil. That was evil.
You guys were having fun. I know it wasn't always fun
Yeah.
in games, but your people too.
We had great fun. I mean, this is a good group of people, and that's the thing about critics. We can relax and enjoy life. We don't have to be worried about, Miscavige getting upset and screaming and cursing at us.
Right.
Bob would not scream and curse. Bob was a great guy.
Kelly BC says, barely see anyone even come out these days. Aaron and crew have had to try and search for them out. And I believe that's in reference to not seeing any Sea Org members out in Clearwater anymore. They're all cowering.
Well, not so much cowering as it is. They built the flag building, opened that. You saw the video from the first protest where all the Scientologists were getting off the bus to go eat in that building next to the LMT. That is no longer in use. So most of the Sea Org that were walking through the streets before, they were going from building to building and then coming over there for dinner and lunch. But it's all pretty much inside now. They don't have to walk through the streets. And the buses drop them off at Flag, and they spend most of the day there. And then they get back on the bus and go back to the berthing.
Is it true that when the LMT was dissolved, that Scientology bought that building that it was in?
No.
Oh,
they didn't buy
no.
it.
They didn't buy it.
No. Bob had to give it to him.
Oh, he gave it to him. Oh.
As part of the settlement to get out from under Miscavige's assault. He signed over the building to them.
Does it still exist today? Does that building still exist today?
The building exists. Yeah, it's now the Way to Happiness building.
Oh, great.
So I can look through the window of the Way to Happiness and see my old office there.
Oh my gosh.
And it was way happier when I was there.
I'm sure it was way happier. Let's see. Nancy Alley says, comment, LRH couldn't see the future past VHS and didn't plan for a person named Streets. Yeah. Couldn't see the internet either. You didn't see that one coming. Belgrath says, geez, way to make me feel old, Mark. Real Player. I'd completely forgotten about that. I remember Real Player. Oh yeah. Let's see. Wendy says, Mark Bunker, are there any records of how many people reached out to the LMT or that LMT rescued?
There's certainly no records that I have. We did help a lot of people. There were very few people like Tori who actually became a part of it. There were other folks, though, who we helped in cases where, like, there's a divorce happening and one parent is in Scientology still, and there's custody battles, things like that. And Stacy was on the phone constantly trying to help people. But I can't point to a large number of folks that they're out because of us. I do know that we had an impact, and the work that we did goes on with these videos.
Well, I would say even if you just planted an idea in somebody's head, you succeeded, right? I mean, that I often have this conversation. I have this conversation is that those that are out there protesting, those that are out there on the front lines, are going to have, I think, a better time of like preventing new people from getting in, obviously, because they can literally combat the body routers and the propaganda right there on the street. And I think that a lot of the people that are doing some of this expose work here behind the scenes might have a better chance of planting ideas in existing like Sea Org members, because so many Sea Org members that left because they got on the internet. They had a Kindle and they were able to get on the internet, or they had a cell phone, a hidden cell phone that they were able to get on, and they see content like yours, content like mine, content like Aaron's and whatnot. And it just starts to plant that idea. And then if you've just done that, that's all you can do, right? That's all. You can't make somebody leave.
Well, yeah, but that's a lot. Planting that seed, Bob going out there with the message, it's safe to look, it's safe to talk. Even Marty Rathbun said after he got out, it was a good message.
Yeah, we need to bring that back.
I did think
we need to bring back that statement. It's safe to look, it's safe to talk.
And I have met people who were in the Sea Org. Jenna Miscavige Hill was there in the Sea Org when the LMT was there. And in her book, I remember
she did.
Her writing about the fact that, she had a half-hour a day to spend with her boyfriend. He was across the street, and she was held back because there were a couple of people protesting on the street. And the Scientology refused to let them go out and take a look at the messages.
Well,
but she said, she was thinking to herself, what are we so afraid of?
But they still do the same tactics they were doing back then with covering the bus windows and masking people up, and they still do that today. It's the exact same playbook. They know no different.
Right. Well, I mean, when you have directives that come from LRH, Hubbard knows how to handle anything, whether it's a psychotic break or getting rid of those pesky SPs. Do what Hubbard says.
The only difference today,
what Hubbard says is usually crazy.
So. It's the only difference though today is you had actual Scientologists up in your face, and we're not seeing that now. We're seeing third parties. We're seeing agent provocateurs being hired off the streets to assault protesters. You're not seeing the Mary DeMosses and the Ben Shaws and whatnot.
It took them a couple years, but they finally realized that they looked nutty on camera. And so the word went out that no one should talk in front of a camera.
Well, does it also, I think Dave Miscavige likes to hide behind several layers of obfuscation. Like the whole concept of him hiring a lawyer to have that lawyer hire a PI to have that PI hire has separated him. But that's where the RICO charges need to really happen, because that's the whole point of RICO, was to combat the mafia and its tactics of layers upon layers upon layers of separation between the guy giving the order. And anyway, let's see. Mad Marcia says, I wish there was more before and afters, like seeing the video of Tori when she was still in and knowing what she's like now is a mind twerk. Yep, definitely. I don't want to.
There are very few people like Tori.
She was the other. I remember her early videos of her showing her SP Declare, and it was like, people, and now you can't even see an SP Declare. They won't give them out because they know it's such bad PR for. All right, let's see.
But I really like Tori and her husband when they were in. She's got that spirit, she's just fun. So when she got out, it was a delight to see her. In the meantime, while she was still in, and the LMT had opened, I was having fun on the Battlefield Earth message board when the movie came out.
Wow.
There were a handful of Scientologists that were on the message board saying things like, I just saw Battlefield Earth for the third time, and I'm taking my kids back tomorrow. And then I would get on there as Xenu TV, and I would be revealing things. Like I posted a review of a draft of the movie script before the movie came out. And I just ripped the script to shreds because it was one of the worst scripts I've ever read. And so suddenly a rave review of the script came out. And I did a little research online and found the fellow who wrote that review had a bio on another unrelated site saying, this year he's being paid by Scientology to promote Battlefield Earth. So I would put that link in there on the message board, and Tori would get so upset, and she'd be calling me Fat TV. And so I had a delightful time doing that type of thing, where, I'm never nasty. I always say, oh, look at this. Oh, yeah, you're seeing it for the 5th time? You're alone at this because everyone else thinks it sucks. And then when she got out and came to the, or she called the LMT first, and Stacy was talking to her and then came back to my office and said, there's a woman on the phone who says that she knows you. And she put Tori on the phone with me, and I recognized her voice immediately. I said, I love you. And it was true then and true now. It's hard not to love Tori.
Just like you, she's another national treasure that you all have to live forever. You realize that, right?
Well, there's national monuments can be put up. I don't have to stay here forever. Just put me on Mount Rushmore along with the presidents.
There you go. Junior Peralta says, Mark, how old were you in the famous 4th of July vids? Speaking of age.
Well, let's see. The 4th of July videos were 99. So
no age. Now there's no ageism on this channel either. So
I'm too old to do the calculations now. I just turned 68 yesterday. So
you're still a baby. You're my parents' age. You're exactly my parents' age. My parents my dad just turned 48 or 68 today. So Sandy Fletcher says, good morning, gents. I'm definitely a lurker and rarely take to the keyboard. However, Mark, I never shy from publicly applauding you for your unwavering dedication. Thank you. Perth, Australia on a Saturday morning. Thank you so much, Sandy. Awesome.
Yes, thank you. It is great to hear from people all over the world. It's nice to know that everything that we did back over the years is still out there, still meeting a new audience.
That's why I reached out to you and wanted you here, because, I've been going through this on the channel, and Lisa's story is a cautionary tale as to what could happen again, and has happened, maybe not to that degree, but, and it's important that we continue to learn from that. Let's see. Xenu Free says, oh yeah, Hubbard never saw the internet coming. And we talked about that. Mad Marcia says, I went on a drive-by in Clearwater with a friend of mine when we were on vacay in Florida. She's yelling stuff out the window, and I'm like, shut up. They're going to get my license plate. Guys, go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
If they get your license plate, don't worry. If they find out who you are, they're unlikely to try to destroy your life. They're these paranoid, this paranoid organization that needs to know, why do people hate us? Well, that's an easy answer. As long as you're not actively taking on Scientology, they're not going to bother you. And here I am, throwing sticks and stones at them constantly, and I'm still here.
And you were even a city councilman, and you're still kicking. And I mean, to be honest with you, I think that the community today, that the amount of I think in the SPTV community alone, we're almost up to like over 200 channels now. And then there's outside of that, there's so much support for what we're doing. I mean, I live near the closest org to me is in Florence, Kentucky. It's the Greater Cincinnati Organization, and it's an ideal org that is basically empty. And I went up there with my wife one graduation night, and that's a Friday evening. Every Friday they have graduation, and it's on a street corner between two very, very busy streets. And we had more people, so many cars honking and shouting and cheering, and the public support for what we're doing outweighs anything that Scientology support could ever get. And as Aaron always says, they've never won, wherever there's been a jury involved, they've never won a court case. So over now says Mark
Well,
Bunk.
I mean, they did win a case against Keith Henson.
Did they? Was that a jury case or was it a
but
settlement?
because it was a jury case, but the judge refused to allow the word Scientology to be used.
Oh,
Yeah, as far as the jury knew, this guy was protesting a religion,
okay.
and it could have been their religion. So, I mean, that's that's why it's important that
Right.
juries need to know this organization is behind it, because this organization is wacky and evil.
It is. Over now says Mark Bunker has been one of the most resilient, persistent journalists that has confronted and shattered Scientology's bubble of delusion. Mark has been great. Yes. And if anybody does want to look at the Mary DeMoss video, there it is. I'm glad she's out. That's why I didn't want to bring it up, because she's out, and she they just don't need to bring her back in anything. Keep going here. We had Blow Drill in the chat. That was awesome. Dreamscape says, I think it's important to show people who are out now when they were in some very remarkable difference. It is. I think it's important, but at the same time, I don't think we want to, keep rubbing their noses in their previous, because they were brainwashed. They were gaslit and convinced. I mean, we said it in the chat, or we said it in the stream, that you're a victim. And I know victim is a bad word in Scientology, but it's not a bad word in the real world. And when you're a victim of a cult, and you're a victim of hypnosis and brainwashing and violence and gaslighting, that you can't always be responsible for what you did when you were in.
Now, do you have a link to Mind Control Made Easy, I think is the name of it? There's this great student film that some guy made decades ago that explains cults. And it's just a beautiful piece of work.
Is it Carrie Burt? Carrie Burt, is that the?
Yes, I think that is.
Yes.
So I never blame anything. Scientologists who are in, when they're saying horrible things to me, I never blame them.
Post that in the
You get
chat.
sucked into a group like this, and it's so easy to fall under the sway of the folks who are.
I have a whole video series on my channel where we're doing Scientology brainwashing techniques, and we've done Dianetics book 1, part 1, because Dianetics is a long, horribly horrible book, but it begins the process of brainwashing. And we also went through some of the questions and rundowns, and how the repetition and how the continuing to make people do things over and over and over again is a brainwashing technique. And going to be more of that on the channel, guys. So everybody, please be sure to like and subscribe this video, and check out the other videos on both my channel and Mark's. Mark is simul streaming this on his channel and on, did you say on Twitter as well? Were you streaming?
It's going out on YouTube, Facebook. Yeah, YouTube and Facebook, I guess.
Nice. Anti-Cult says Jesse was framed by the Largo police. His book is a good read, you all. I mean, it's definitely should be in your, and it unfortunately doesn't have an Audible of it, so you have to read it. But Wendy says, we see that police behavior still today. That's talking about how they refuse to look at videos. Dreamscape has a question. Mark, did you ever manage to get Scientos arrested? And I'm guessing this is if they encountered you.
No, I don't think I've ever tried. I mean, there are a couple of times when I could have, like when they stole my political yard signs
Right. That's
before
recent.
the last election. Yeah. And, the cops were able to track them down. Thankfully, one of the women living in a neighborhood in Clearwater had a Ring camera capture these two people in a white pickup going around in the middle of the night taking signs from her yard. And I was able to give the police a list of the streets I went down where I had planted signs that are now gone. So the police tracked them down by looking at traffic videos. And I could have had them booked and had to face consequences. I just said, listen, I just want to know who did it and why.
Right.
And I know there are people who are saying, Mark, you should have thrown the book at him. Stealing yard signs is kind of like throwing toilet paper in a tree on Halloween Eve.
Right.
These are things that are traditional.
But what you say about the exposing that who did it is actually more impactful, especially because it's black PR for the cult. It's
and it I could use it for my campaign, being able to say, look, the Scientologists are stealing my signs. They don't want me elected. It got coverage on TV news and in the Tampa Bay Times. So that makes up for the fact that, my signs were not on the street anymore.
You would think with the prevalence of cameras and internet connected cameras everywhere today that people would be a little bit more aware of their actions, but human beings are human beings, Let's see. Merzy Dote says Jessica had a PI following her at the test center. Then streets ID'd him and found embarrassing info on him. That's the other thing is, you can find information on people very easily compared to back in the day. I mean, Gabe Cazares and Paulette Cooper, whom I did videos on both of their cases, if they'd have had the internet back then and had the web, I don't know that they would have gone through so much trouble.
Oh no. I mean, if information was out then, it would have been a world of difference for them.
Absolutely. Definite Trouble Source says cops and security guards are allowed to make stuff up. Cops can lie to you. I don't know about security guards, but it's sad that
I don't think there's any rules for security guards at all. I would think that they'd
probably not. I guess they could. Yeah. Dreamscape says now they just use crappy cult music and Michael Jackson music. Well, they do use crappy cult music. They used that on me while I was out in Portland this last weekend. The Michael Jackson music I can handle. The cult music though, and I have some of their records, and oh my gosh, it's not a good night.
Well, yeah, Tori told me the other night that they're playing Scientology copyrighted material at full blast because of the copyright issues with that. From what I understood from Tori, if you were streaming your videos and We Stand Tall is playing, they can say, hey, take these videos down. That's our music. I don't know if that's the case or not. That's what I heard from Tori.
The problem is there's a couple of things is that they can do it. They can do a copyright strike, but again, they have to then go to court because that's a copyright law violation, and that YouTube will only keep your video down for a certain amount of time if you appeal it, and the appeal process requires you to actually the striker has to actually take you to court for copyright infringement, which of course the Scientology is not going to do, because then it opens them up for discovery. Then you're going to find out all these emails and conversations where they're being directed to do stuff like that. And then it's also a violation of YouTube's terms of service to use and abuse copyright against the church. Now, whether or not Scientology has its fingers in YouTube is, and there's been several of the protesters out in LA like Jessica and others that have successfully fought copyright strikes and gotten them removed. It does suck for the interim because your video and your monetization for that video is immediately taken away, but it has a long-term outcome. And I do think that YouTube will eventually clue in to the copyright in the copyright violation or a copyright abuse of their system.
Well, I'm much happier with this system now than
Oh, I
what it
heard about
was
you.
when.
You talked about that.
Yeah, I mean, my YouTube channel was shut down completely, but there was enough press about it and enough people contacting Paramount, who were the last people to make a copyright claim. There was a Scientology video. It was the Tom Cruise tape that I
Oh,
did.
the SP, the
Yeah,
the collar, the turtleneck.
Yes, yeah. It was at that point where that video was online, and one other, and then a Stephen Colbert clip, and it was Paramount's third strike that caused the cancellation of my channel. But there was so much attention that Paramount actually said, "All right, we'll withdraw the complaint. You can have your channel back."
Yeah. YouTube's not perfect there's no doubt, but at least it's better than some. Let's see. Patrick Skinner says RO for harassment of a minor. I think that's the Kelly or Ashley out in San Francisco with the child that was in the org there. Definite Trouble Source says Mark is a man of his word, and I think that has to do with your movie.
Running for office. Oh.
I think your movie and maybe your movie. Kelly BC says Clearwater really lost an advocate. Yes.
Yeah. What really pisses me off right now about not being on the council is not Scientology, because I can still fight Scientology here.
Yep.
But we approved some safety changes to Drew Street, which is a very dangerous neighborhood where people are dying in car accidents. We had approved changes last year that would have dropped the accidents by 57%, wow, and only slowed traffic down by 30 seconds on your trip. And not a penny of Clearwater money was being spent for it. It was all Build Back Better federal and state funds that would have done this. And the new council got in specifically to cancel that, which they're trying to do right now and will in just a couple of weeks when they vote on it.
And their rationale,
it's frustrating. Their rationale, the Chamber of Commerce is worried that slowing down the traffic is going to hurt business downtown. To which I say, downtown, the traffic is not the problem. Scientology bought up all these buildings and they're leaving them sit empty.
Yeah.
And you know what? Scientology is a partner in our Chamber of Commerce, Amplify Clearwater. And if Amplify can't turn to Scientology and say, you go and do something about these empty buildings, or you're out of Amplify, they should not be a partner. I don't understand why it's so difficult for people to put their foot down. Now, we had the Downtown Development Board, which was all Scientologists. Again, they wouldn't touch anything to do with Scientology owning the empty buildings. We dissolved that board, and now the council is the Downtown Development Board. So Amplify Clearwater ought to get some balls and take on Scientology.
Maybe you can get out there with your cell phone and show what Drew Street. I don't even know where Drew Street is. I don't know.
I will do. It's a main drag. There's two main streets that go from the freeway toward the beach. Gulf to Bay is the main one, and then Drew Street is parallel to that. But it travels through a neighborhood. One section of the road is the lanes are too narrow. They're supposed to be 12 feet wide. They're 9.5 feet wide. And the sidewalks are tiny. And cars are just flying off the road into people's homes. It's like, we can make this better without spending a cent. And you know who would appreciate that? All the Scientologists who live in that neighborhood, who have signs up saying Safe Drew Street. And I went to talk to them in their neighborhood and say, listen, we're going to vote, we're going to approve this. And Maureen O'Keefe is a Scientologist
I think I've heard that name somehow. But.
Longtime Scientologist. She was in the neighborhood. And I was talking to one of the women there saying, don't worry, we're going to get this approved. We're going to make the street safe for you. And suddenly, as I'm talking to her, this woman was grabbed by the arm and dragged away from me by Maureen O'Keefe.
Because you're an SB.
So, and I discovered it's almost all Scientologists living in that neighborhood. And I'm trying to make the neighborhood safer for you.
But I mean, doesn't that hold like good weather, fair roads, or good fair weather, good roads? I mean, that's good roads. Isn't that the doctrine? I mean,
it has nothing to do with roads. It has to do with lying.
Tori says the old bogus lines. I'm a Christian and a Scientologist. Yeah.
Tori Magoo. I recognize that name. Hey, Magooski.
Yeah. The whole, Scientology is compatible with all it's compatible with all of the religions until you spend any money or any time in the cult. Let's see, getting close here. SP Wog says Largo Police Department has a way to happiness in their lobby. Oh my goodness, they really do. There is a Scientology building in front of the Largo Medical Gulf to Bay. Is that true? Oh, wow.
Yeah, Scientology did buy some property in Largo. Now, as far as the way to happiness in the police lobby, I haven't seen that, but they put those things up in lobbies and businesses around town. And like the pizza place, Downtown Pizza here, I'll go in and there'll be crap like that. And when no one's looking, I'll throw it all in the trash.
Oh,
but, it's a shame that they're allowed to spread their propaganda.
They did that out in LA. We've heard about that. Kelly BC says another way to support Mark is to open another tab and let some of his videos run to create watch hours. Yes. Same for me too. Do it.
Okay.
Same for all the small channels out there too. Let's see. 49ers fan for life. Did you see John Allender? I believe OT7 is on. I'm not sure what that is.
John Allender is a Scientologist in Portland. He was in Portland when I was there for the opening. I believe that's John Allender.
Okay.
And he came up. That opening of the Ideal Org was a fascinating day.
I bet.
As I got there the day before and talked to the manager of the sporting goods store that was right across the street from where the stage was, and he was going to allow me to be videotaping from the second floor window in that building. And when I showed up for the event, then on the day of the event, I didn't bring my big camera with me because I didn't want to be, so recognizable. Right. I just had a little portable thing that was tucked away. And I was just walking through the entrance to the sporting goods store, and somebody went, "Mark?" And I turned around and said, yes. And then he realized it was me. And he ran to alert the folks there that Mark Bunker was here. And they had the police come up to the second floor. And they searched my bag. They were told that there was a bomb threat. And then the manager freaked out and said, "No, you can't film from in here." So I climbed on top of that bar after talking to a bartender saying, "Hey, is it okay if I go onto the roof and shoot some video?" He said, "Yeah, go ahead." And you got
a great shot. That was a great shot.
Briefly, I didn't really get anything more than that because Scientology called the owner of the bar and said, "There's this guy who's climbed onto your roof." And so the police were sent to take me off of there. And then I eventually was like a block away, and there was an apartment building. And one of the tenants, this was a locked building, one of the tenants saw me and said that I could join him up on the roof to shoot from there. So that's where I set up my camera, and I could see the event. But when Miscavige came on, they turned the microphone down really low, the speakers low.
Really?
So you couldn't hear what he was saying. You could hear the people introducing him, But as soon as he walked out, it dropped down.
I love that you call him Slappy. I love that you call him Slappy.
Yeah. So, and while Slappy's talking, John Allender came running up there and tried to grab the camera off the, it was on the ledge of the building. So I had to keep blocking him. And he brought the police up there, and we had one of the women who was like a representative of the building. And she said, no, he has permission. And so the police said, okay, and let me videotape. But you can't hear a damn thing. But it was made for a fun afternoon, and I kept sending short videos back to Tony Ortega for him to put up.
Content, right? It's content. Yeah. And 49ers fan for life even says John Allender, who attacked Mark on the rooftop, is now on Twitter attacking protesters. So,
and he was one of the people who was attacking Marty Rathbun down in Texas as part of the Squirrel
Squad or Squirrel Busters. Squirrel Busters.
Squirrel Busters, yeah.
GoPros on their heads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So my incident in Portland was shortly after all that Squirrel Buster stuff.
Hank 209er says he is bearded and he is wise. Let's see. Definite Trouble Source says the Largo building is a mission, I believe. Not much going on there, but I have seen the parking lot full at times. Wow, maybe 30 cars. Wow. Don't ever see that in any of the orgs that I've visited thus far. I think we're getting almost. See, Tommy Tone Toontown says, comment, Mark, love your video of the premiere of the General's daughter hunting Travolta. I thought the autograph hunters were going to take out a hit on you. Did not see that one.
Well, the thing is, they didn't really know that I was connected to Xenu. We had a guy dressed up like Xenu coming to Travolta's movie premiere in Westwood. And Travolta normally would come over and sign autographs, but because there was one critic with a big sign attacking Scientology and Xenu there, Tom kind of scurried out the back door. So I got that on tape, and it's a big one. Xenu in Hollywood, something like that. I don't know.
Guys, you've got to check out. We still have a few more things, but I just want to remind people, you need to check out Mark's channel. He's recapturing all his video in 4K. It looks gorgeous, as though it was captured in 4K from the get-go. It's really good stuff. All right, let's keep going here. Kazi says, getting a good mic and having sufficient volume and sound quality is super important for success on YouTube. It is.
Is this mic okay?
You sound great. SP Wog says, always full Scientology, probably producing. Okay, I think that's a conversation for between. Susan S says, here in St. Louis, we are trying to inform the citizens. They are going to make St. Louis org an ideal one in the next year. Great place for us to go out and protest when that happens.
Yeah. Nothing much is going to happen except there'll be a prettier empty building.
And for those that don't know, St. Louis is the home of the Applied Scholastics. So,
oh boy,
that is let's see. Tori says, here in LA, every building is shut down and hiding.
Well, Maguski is a frightening individual. They see her coming and they know, oh my God, she could be packing heat.
She has got some guns on her. She just goes and, she needs to sit down. She's going to go sit down on their retaining wall. She needs to let her sit down. Let her sit down. Wendy says, in Chicago, we had the blinds down and doors closed when one of the biggest donors came in for his son's wedding. I loved showing him how well his money is wasted. Yes, definitely go check out his channel. All right, let's see. Patrick Skinner says the Fort Harrison has a basement, but the area was built up to allow for that. Yeah, you can't have basements in Florida. Not naturally. Tori again says LMT helped a ton of people. I mean, just Mark, everything you guys did on the LMT. I mean, that's why you're here, obviously. But I mean, let's see. Tori also says, well, Xenu TV, the fat TV guy, was me trying to change that name.
I didn't take it personally. I was just amused that it was my friend Tori, who I loved, calling me Fat TV.
Tommy Tone Toontown says, comment, Tori and Jess Palmadessa are great to watch together. Comedy gold. Yep. 49ers for Life wants to know, did Mark know Sean Lonsdale?
No, I was not here when Sean was out on the street. I moved here a year or two after he died. I did see some of his videos along the way when he was out there every day, but I didn't know him. I never met him.
See, Definite Trouble Source says there are a handful of us in Clearwater for the past months. They have our plates, know our cars, but it's not been a problem yet. Well, I know early on y'all were dealing with a lot of pop tires and stuff, but I'm hopeful that that strategy is not paying off. Wendy says, I became bolder when they revealed my name, so thanks for freeing me to protest harder. Yeah,
and that's the case with me too. I was afraid to show my face for a year. Critics came to town to protest at Big Blue and the Celebrity Center. I was too frightened to join them at the beginning, but I was doing videos for the web. So for one picket, I dubbed off VHS copies of a bunch of these shows from around the world, and I took a baggie of them, stopped my car on L. Ron Hubbard Way, and handed it to one of the critics. Said, hey, these are for you, and then sped away. And it wasn't until Scientology came to my house to protest me that I decided, okay, well, I'm not afraid anymore.
Is that
I know
the
who
counter?
I am. Yeah, the revenge picket.
The revenge picket.
Yeah. So they leafleted my neighborhood. They, they came and protested, and I shot some video and put it on the web, and that was the beginning of Xenu TV. And I haven't been afraid ever since then.
I actually have a minute. Let's play that real quick here, y'all. It's only a minute long.
I grabbed the patented Minton cam and covered the whole event. This will give you the chance to watch the first fully videotaped revenge picket. And Mike Rinder, it will give you the chance to see just how well your little boys did.
Would you like a flyer?
Yeah, I would. I just got one, but I've been looking for more. You guys have pretty lousy picture on that.
Well, if you can get us
I can give you more if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
And what's your name?
My name's Dan.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for coming by.
Sure.
And what's your name?
D.
D. And are you a Scientologist, or were you hired by Scientology to come by?
I'm a Scientologist.
Oh, really? How long you been in Scientology?
Doesn't matter.
I'm just curious.
I really don't want to do an interview with you.
You don't?
Nope.
Well, sorry to hear that. I mean, you're here at my house. I'm willing.
I grabbed.
Okay. Watching that and watching that guy at the very end, he's been filmed for a good minute or a good 20 seconds. Sees this, his face is in your camera. It's on tape. And yet he still tries to cover up. I don't get it. It's just anyway.
He, by the way, was not on OT3 yet. So when I started talking in a minute or so after that about Xenu, he actually fled the scene.
Oh, I didn't get that. They don't let you clip a minute, and I didn't catch that. I just wanted to see.
That's okay.
And Dan, you see later in some of the 4th of July stuff. He starts to confront you, and I think he's in his mind trying to postulate you not existing or something. Let's see. Xenu Free says streamers should blare back Elron's dumb voice yakking out word salad they don't want to admit that exists. That's a good tactic. You can't. It's hard to fake his voice. It's not very fakeable.
I've never had a second wife.
I've only had my first and my third. I've been told that my L. Ron Hubbard voice, that I'm not allowed to use it at home. Let's see. Comment. Full Church of Scientology parking lot could be them renting spaces to other nearby businesses. Possibly. The Oregon Cincinnati is under eminent domain threat right now from the city. They want to take back some of their parking lot.
Good.
All right. So that is it, Mark. This has been wonderful to talk to you. And I want to talk to you again more and more and more. So I hope that you'll be willing to come back. And
sure.
I hope everybody has enjoyed having Wise Beard Man here. That is your anonymous name, right? Is that what they indoctrinated you with?
Yes. And by the way, I've had fun tonight too. So thanks for having me on.
Yes. Everybody be sure to go and subscribe. If you're not already subscribed to his channel, you're missing out. I mean, you're just missing out, pure and simple. He has the gold sound system thing that they were trying to do. And definitely check out all his videos, all these new upscaled videos. And, some of the classics are still there in their original SD format, but.
Oh, they're all there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing's being taken down.
Yeah. He's got all his, there's Dan, there's the gentleman that we just saw. There's some Tori Magoo in there. There's some Aaron Smith Levin. You could just play his whole entire channel all day and just get a bunch of kicks out of it.
Yeah, please do that.
And also be sure to hit like and subscribe on his stream. He's been simulcasting it. Hit like and subscribe on my channel as well. And I just want to again say thank you so much. This has been wonderful. And if you'll stick around for a few minutes after we end the live, I'd just like to say goodbye to you properly.
Sure.
Thank you to everybody that's been here. You all have been a wonderful chat. Thank you to my mod team that's been out there with Fuzzy Pink Handcuffs in the lead. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all my friends that have been here, all the new people that have joined, be sure you're hitting the subscribe, the like, the notification. Again, I do a lot of exposés Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern, unless I post it on my community tab. And then my wife and I will go out and protest at orgs when we get a chance. Thankfully, we don't live near an org. But, and again, let's take a look at who we're going to room raid. Fuzzy is saying we're going to room raid Kelly in Sacramento. Let's do that. And thanks again, everybody. See you all later.